Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and today I'm really excited because I have my new friend and colleague, Simon Boehme, visiting with us today. So just a little bit about Simon. I was telling him before we started taping that if I listed everything that's in his amazing bio, it would take the entire episode. And so I do encourage you all to go read it in the show notes. But at a high level, Simon is a technology entrepreneur, and he specializes in dispute resolution and legal innovation. So you can understand why I'm so excited to have him here with us today. He's currently the head of operations, chief of staff, trust safety at Lime, those scooters that I love so much. When I told him when I lived in California, that was like one of my favorite things when those things just started showing up on the street, because it was such a great way to get around. They don't seem to have them here in Chicago. But Simon has been a online dispute resolution professional for several years. This isn't something new to him, just like I've been doing this for a number of years. But certainly his name is being, spoken and talked about quite a bit more, as many of us in the field are right now, with the current interest in online dispute resolution. I do want to mention he just did a really popular webinar for members of the American Bar Association dispute resolution section. I watched it. It was great. You can still access the video if you're a member on this dispute resolution section website. He also has a great slide deck that he did that you can access at zoomodr.com, and it's talking about using Zoom by, the use of Zoom by dispute resolution professionals. And then he has a website because he does, like I do, he does trainings, advanced trainings. He has some webinars coming up with advanced trainings on ODR, and you can get more information on that at simonboehme.com. Let me spell that, SIMONBOEHME.com. So all of that being said, I'm super excited to have you here today, Simon. Thanks so much for making the time and joining me.
Well, thank you, Susan, for having me on. I'm excited to have this conversation with you.
So right now, as we're taping this, you live in San Francisco. So you're right in the heart of legal tech, innovation, and all, right?
In Silicon Valley, and when I first moved out here, started a legal tech company. The very first company was called DoPro, where we wanted to help people understand what's in the fine print. And so I've been very passionate about access to justice, also serving on the State Bar of California's Access to Justice Task Force, and exploring ways on how we can use technology to improve access to justice to millions of Californians across the state. And so it's just such an exciting time to be in legal tech and to promote these really valuable tools.
Yeah, I'm excited because Simon and I today are going to be talking about some of the alternatives for online dispute resolution professionals in that online format. So Zoom is probably, I would say, the most talked about. And in fact, that's what that slide deck that you did was about. But what many online professionals are seeking are perhaps alternatives to Zoom. And something you and I, Simon, talked about before we got started was the fact that it doesn't have to be one and done. You don't need to pick just one platform and stick with that. There might be reasons why different matters would call for different platforms, don't you think?
Exactly. Similar to how ODR is just another tool in the toolbox for a mediator and arbitrator, understanding different platforms is another tool within the mediators and arbitrators toolbox, right? ADR and ODR, they go together, and it's another tool. It advances and demonstrates to the clients your extreme knowledge, your mastery of the topic, your mastery of being a dispute resolution practitioner. And so to me, I think it's really important that even if you don't use these alternatives, it's important that you're aware of them. Zoom is a one-size-fits-all platform. It's designed for everyone. That's why millions and millions of people are using it. But as we both know, Susan, the needs of a lawyer, the needs of an ADR professional are very different than what everyone else needs.
Right. That's such a good point, because I always remind people in my training, because I do talk about Zoom in the training, but I always remind people that Zoom is an online meeting platform. It's not an online dispute resolution platform. It wasn't created for our profession. And so maybe some of the challenges that are, being so talked about right now, um, are things that ODR platforms are platforms that were created by dispute resolution professionals for dispute resolution. They might address those in a different way or in a better way for your particular practice, right? Everybody has different needs. And so I agree with you. I think knowing about all the different platforms or knowing about the alternatives is another way for you to show your clients and even yourself that you truly have an understanding of this online dispute resolution process.
Exactly. Just as you wouldn't use Skype for a family mediation where you have to reveal the personal user ID, specifically if domestic abuse or there's a very sensitive situation, you would never want to reveal that personal information as a mediator in that situation. So you can immediately eliminate Skype as a potential opportunity. And mediators and arbitrators should have that kind of basic knowledge to know that what are the things I need to do to keep my clients safe and protected, and ensure that everything that takes place is private to the best that it can be. And so, and you're right, Zoom wasn't designed for dispute resolution. We are very grateful though for Colin Rule, just down the hallway from him, to encourage in the early days, the happy days of Zoom, when it was just a few thousand users, that Colin really recommended to them, hey, think about these tools. And because of that recommendation, we're fortunate that we do have the ability to have breakout rooms as well. And so, I think alternatives, and especially now at the early stage, as I said in my ABA dispute resolution presentation, I always imagined that this day would come, but not under these very sad and heartbreaking circumstances where people are dying and there's such economic hardship. And so I understand that a lot of this is out of economic necessity, and that is sad, but it's also good that so many people and the mediators, arbitrators I've met are just so eager to learn. And I think that's just the very basic thing, is how can you learn about these new platforms and find what works for you? Because Zoom is not the only platform out there. And that's really important, is that there are some really, really great alternatives, and they're early stage where you can email the founder and they'll respond to you. Where I know, Susan, we were talking earlier that you try to get a hold of Zoom, it's nearly impossible unless you know someone in Silicon Valley.
Right.
And then you can get it. And so to me, and this is at the heart of, I think, why you want to look at these alternatives, is the founders and the people at these companies that we'll be discussing today are excited to speak with people in our community. They want to hear from you and they want to learn from you. It's definitely a two-way road where the ADR professionals have so much to learn, but these founders have so much to learn as well. And people who listen to your podcast, Susan, are the people who can really teach them and offer the best advice and feedback.
And that's such a great point, because that's something that I am seeing across the board right now is excitement. I do know we're in difficult times, but the vast majority of people that I'm talking to who are taking the training are very excited to try this new frontier. And, as you mentioned, you and I have both been talking to some of the founders of these ODR alternative platforms, and they're excited. And I talked to one recently and mentioned something that just for me was sort of a drawback with their platform. It was missing something. And he was like, we will do that. We will get that on there. It'll be easy. We didn't realize that was something dispute resolution professionals would want. So I agree. They are so open-minded, and I love that level of ability to influence how they are creating and expanding these platforms. So you've had the opportunity, being there in Silicon Valley, being so immersed in the world of legal tech that, you've been aware of some of these alternate platforms or ODR specific platforms, I'll call them, for a while now. So that was one of the reasons why I was so happy that you were willing to come on the show to talk about them. So let's just start. You mentioned one. I will admit I went and signed up for it this morning, and I can't wait to start playing with it. You mentioned LegalUr. What can you tell us about LegalUr?
Well, LegalUr is one of my favorites, and I highly recommend everyone who's listening to just sign up and create a free account as Susan did this morning. And one of the reasons I love it is free. You can get an active plan. It's highest tier for 12 months to any dispute resolution practitioner firm, and there's a code. I think it's remote-19. So we'll have to include that in the show notes, but it's legaler.com. Easy to use, straightforward. You can use it for scheduling. You can host meetings. You can do it securely. You can share your screen very easily as you would in Zoom. And the breakout room functionality, I believe, is more intuitive than on Zoom. You kind of have this weird user interface on Zoom where you have to sign and you join, but then you can also leave. With LegalUr, you have multiple meetings up and running. It's built into the application. It's built into the your internet browser. So there's no native application right now, which makes it much easier to use. And it's very secure. It uses encrypted, all data on LegalUr is encrypted, and uses AWS, Amazon Web Services, military grade protected servers. And so a top tier security. And you can also customize it as well, unlike Zoom, unless you pay a lot of money for it. LegalUr can really can help to bring your ADR practice to a new level, especially in the online world, and a new level of professionalism.
Well, and I like that, being able to sort of brand it or bring it, because that's one thing I talk about it a lot when I'm training people, is especially right now where we're all working out of our homes, people, the online professional experience is being somewhat degraded in some cases, where we're seeing people's spare bedrooms in the background and their kids are running around. Some of that is great, but if you are a professional trying to provide a professional experience, the more that you can actually take your platform and personalize it to your practice, I do think that up levels everything for you, just right off the bat to your clients.
Yeah, and Stevie, the founder of LegalUr, I've spoken with him multiple times, and again, the feedback loop is just very different. I think just taking one step back is, in the legal profession, if a judge offers or an arbitrator offers a ruling on something, you can't really give any feedback that they'll listen to. That's the ultimate ruling. But in technology companies, the purpose, and as a founder, you want to build a product people love, and you can't build that in a silo. You have to take in other people's input. And so I can speak to Stevie's character over just the short time that I've known him. He's been very receptive to my feedback, such a great guy. And again, I can speak that to him that he wants to hear from people like listeners of this podcast. And so, yeah, I think in terms of the marketing component, and Susan is a guru is such an expert on this, and I should probably sign up for her lessons, because I could do much better in marketing, because it's not my thing. But it is really important, and the entire legal profession could do a much better job of learning how to market. And I know part of the issue with marketing is I believe, burdensome regulations that many state bars put on lawyers. But I think that's really starting to change. It will have to change the longer we're in this pandemic. And I think when we come out of this, stronger together, hopefully we can find even a bit more smart regulations. It's not necessarily reducing regulations, it's just smarter regulations around that marketing. And LegalUr is one that can, I believe, put you at a competitive advantage. You put one link in your in your email, people can instantly schedule, makes it really seamless. And I'm thinking about totally transitioning on there as well.
Yeah, I'm excited to go play with it. One question, because this is a complaint I get about Zoom a lot with the breakout rooms, is it's very clunky as the mediator to transition between rooms, because there's no way to door knock, so I'll call it,
Yep.
on the separate breakout room. Does LegalUr have something that lets you communicate with the participants in the breakout rooms?
Yeah, so they have a chat function, whereas on Zoom, as you may know, you can't talk to someone in the opposing breakout room. You can send a broadcast message to all. You can text or call. And I recently heard something really cool that a mediator here in San Francisco does, where rather than using the breakout function, he ends the meetings and then just starts separate Zoom meetings, which is another way to think about it. I know I received an email from a mediator, which I'm not sure where he's based, but an attorney didn't want to have a mediation with this person because he was worried that the mediator would accidentally walk into a privileged conversation. If you exit out of Zoom and you create separate Zoom meetings for each of the parties, that's a really good way to make sure you're not interrupting privileged conversations. Similar with LegalUr, it's nearly impossible to interrupt a privileged conversation. You have a more robust chat function. You have a greater visual user interface to understand who's in what room. And it's just more pleasant to look at than the clunkiness of Zoom.
That's one aspect I have to say, especially for most of the people that I'm training who are doing caucus mediation. The breakout rooms are such a source of anxiety in Zoom, and everyone finds that clunky. I like that interesting end around. I have heard of people opening separate meetings on different computers, like they'll have more than one laptop set up and they'll set up different Zoom meetings and do that way. But then you have to mute and be sure that you muted because everything's set up right there.
Yeah, I think that's too complicated and probably just use the breakout rooms. This mediator has them in a joint session if he even wants to do that. And then he says, all right, defendants, you're on hold for an hour. Do whatever you want.
Go have fun.
Go have fun. Exactly. Go get a cup of coffee. I'm going to talk to the plaintiffs, and then I'll call you on Zoom when I'm done with the plaintiffs. And so that's a really interesting way. I haven't tried it, but I would be open to trying it. And I think for those who really are not on LegalUr or have trouble with Zoom breakout rooms, it could be a good way to go. And again, that just requires more competency in scheduling the meeting and navigating the join function and scheduling a new meeting. But I think it's very doable.
I like the creativity. That's one thing that, this whole, anytime you're moving into a new realm,
Exactly.
being open-minded. I remember the very first time I was presenting with a panel on this topic of ODR, online mediation, we made one entire section of the discussion having that open mind. Like, you have to just sort of expand your brain beyond what we are, I think as legal professionals have a tendency to stick with but that's the way we've always done it. We don't do it that way. So I love that. So Simon, another platform that you talked about in your ABA webinar that I watched last week was another platform called Crick, CREK. So what can you tell us about that platform?
Crick is another great platform, and I highly recommend people checking it out. It's CREKODR.com. It's another simple, easy to use platform for mediation and arbitration. And this one is $75 per case per month. And each case comes with document storage, video conferencing, private space, different breakout rooms, and again, really high security. And I know the founder, Chitsu, she was the co-founder of Modren. She has been in ODR and legal tech for a very long time and a real trailblazer in this space. And so she, again, would love to hear from you. She's the kind of person who just loves speaking with mediators and arbitrators. And they're based in India, and they've created a really robust platform. And I think, just to reiterate, this is another tool in the toolbox, and this is just another platform that you can offer to your clients and say you use in case maybe there is a special need to use Crick over Zoom or LegalUr.
Right. And then that's part of the, I think what's interesting about all of these different alternatives is you can have all of them in that toolbox that you just referenced, become familiar with all of them, and then pick the one that best suits your particular matter that's before you. Work with your client.
Right. And Crick also has a fairly decent platform for doing asynchronous mediation as well, right? So much of it, and what the topic today is about, Zoom and synchronous dispute resolution, where, you know, Susan, me, and another person, we're all in the same room and we're trying to resolve it today or over the next few days. Asynchronous is more text-based, where you send certain kinds of messages. Maybe it's a lower dollar case, you want to do pro bono work and you don't necessarily have time, or you're tied up with other things, where maybe you can resolve it using an asynchronous method. So LegalUr has the chat room function. Crick also has this, where you could maybe do it in a different time frame. And again, just a different way of resolving a conflict.
Yeah, well, and super interesting point, because I don't think anyone really talks about that particularly much or thinks about that these days. But I talk to a lot of courtside mediators who are doing small claims or are doing lower dollar matters, as you mentioned, and the people don't have access to tech or computers or as high level platforms as we have. So if they're able to do this through a secure, even chat function or text messaging in that asynchronous platform, I think that would be of interest for, you know, a certain style of mediation, again, because we may do different things.
Exactly. And LegalUr Aid is another great one. So if you're doing a lot of pro bono work, now more than ever, the need of lawyers as warriors of justice and are needed to protect the oppressed and vulnerable people. And so exploring those tools to help more people and using that asynchronous, and even if it's sending a video clip, you know, you could do that. Or if it's just sending certain documents, providing some kind of advice, these chat room functions, secure text messaging essentially on a platform like Crick or LegalUr can be really useful and robust. And I think, again, demonstrates a real level of mastery in this online age.
That's great to know. I definitely will be checking that platform out. And in the grand scheme of things, $75 per case when we're being paid to handle, you know, a multi-party mediation, or as you mentioned, it works well for arbitration as well. You know, that's really a nominal figure in the grand scope of things. And if it's very helpful to your particular style of practice, that's the other thing that layers into this, right? We're all dispute resolution professionals, but every one of us, as we are moving forward into the world of dispute resolution, we kind of establish our own sort of format for our mediations. And that's often what I talk to people about, is like, you know, the whole thing with transitioning from a in-person practice to an online practice is figuring out how you're going to do what you did in person and translate it somehow into the online platform. So that's the other thing for people to be thinking about as they look at all these platforms. What suits your particular style of practice as in the best way, right?
Just as every mediator and arbitrator has their personal preference. They bring people together for a joint session. They never bring the parties together, or maybe they caucus until they want to bring everyone together. Everyone has their own style. And similar to these platforms we're talking about, just as you said, Susan, it will match people's different style and preference. And that's the great thing, and why I encourage people to check out these alternatives. Just to reiterate, Zoom is not the only platform out there. It's a great option. And particularly it's secure. There's a lot of great resources, Susan's trainings, and obviously the barrier for convincing your clients to use Zoom is a little bit lower because it has gained so much popularity. You can Zoom with your church, you can Zoom with your parents and your children and grandchildren, etc. So Zoom has that functionality, but things incorporated in Crick will come very natural to someone who's been in the profession for decades and say, hey, this is pretty suave. And same with LegalUr and the MODRON and the other ones we'll be talking about. So yeah, I agree. The $75 is not that much. And Chitsu, again, she's awesome. Reach out to her, and it's easy to get a hold of these people, and they want to talk to people.
And that's a phenomenal, advantage that we all have. And the next platform we were going to talk about, I'm actually having the founder of this platform on the show next week. So I encourage everybody to come back. But I do want to touch on his platform. I've spoken with him. You've spoken with him. He's from Australia. And Nathan Polito is the CEO and founder of Modren Spaces, which is another online platform. And when he showed, I spent some time online with him. I know he walked you through a demo as well, I think. And I was very impressed by it. It was well thought out, well structured. For me at that point in time, it was missing a couple of things that I like to do that Zoom has. But here's exactly what you were saying. I told Nathan this, and he said, we will get on it. We will implement those things.
Yeah, technology is moving so fast nowadays. And this is obviously a critical time for people to really put their best foot forward and to come out with these products, especially as the ADR community needs to move forward and we need secure, safe platforms. And so I did get a demo of Modron. I don't know Nathan that well. When I spoke to him, the price was $299 Australian dollars per month. And so that's about $181 US dollars a month with unlimited case and features. This one has a really strong meeting space and then a really strong case management space. So I think those two functionalities make it compelling if you're looking to maybe put your case management into something new. And again, many intuitive features.
Yeah, and I think for people, one of the things that I think will come about as we go through such enormous change in the world right now is that dispute resolution as a profession is going to get an astronomical boost, is going to grow. As a result of this, I think the court systems which have always been overburdened, understaffed, underpaid, are only going to be more overburdened. And I think that people will be reaching out for alternate sources of dispute resolution. So people who are transitioning from a legal practice or now will be considering adding a dispute resolution, you have a good point that, if you're transitioning to a new type of practice, want to have case management integrated well into your online platform, Modren might be an opportunity to do that.
And I know I've spent a fair amount of time, and Susan, I believe you have too, is helping lawyers and helping ADR professionals convince their clients that you should get online. And numerous mediators, arbitrators have had their cases postponed because people are nervous about Zoom. But I think this pandemic will last a significant time, unfortunately, and courthouses will remain closed, and ADR professionals will be there to save the day. And you want to afford, and what I just believe is that demonstrating expertise and a mastery of competency of multiple platforms gives the clients more confidence in you and gives the clients a more comforting feeling that if Zoom doesn't work out, we can make the switch to MODRON, we can make the switch to LegalUr. And then also I think you, again, just become a real expert in online dispute resolution when you understand what else is out there.
Yeah, and always keeping that open mind. And something you and I said earlier is it may be that you offer different platforms that, we do online dispute resolution. Here are the choices, and we're so advanced in our online practice that we're going to custom choose the platform we'll use for your dispute resolution process to suit your particular matter. Because we know them all so well, we can help decide what are your biggest priorities, what are your highest level concerns, and we will help select the platform that works best. So it gives you and your clients, who always like options,
Right.
even more options. So there's one more that you recommended, or that you have looked into. I don't know if you're recommending it. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but RDO.
Resolve disputes online. RDO. Yep. So it's just resolve disputes dot online. This one is and I'm sure we'll put that in the notes so you can quickly access it. This one, a little bit more, license fee of $100 US dollars per case, and then $150 for a server fee for a secure local cloud hosting in your jurisdiction. This is a forthcoming feature on Zoom where you can choose which jurisdiction you can have your servers routed through. I know this is a very sensitive topic when it comes to China. And I think a really good case in point is for our international listeners, for our mediators, arbitrators who have international cases, ensuring that the data that transpires, that is transmitted during your hearing, you want to make sure it's on a server within the jurisdiction of your choosing, and you want to make sure that it's safe. There's threats of Chinese, listening in on your sessions. So these are things just to be aware of, and I encourage everyone to read more about it, specifically what Zoom is doing, and then also what all four of these alternatives to Zoom are doing to make sure your data is safe and it's in the jurisdiction of your choice. And so RDO does have that really nice feature. This one, I was introduced to one of the co-founders. I was speaking at a ADR conference, I believe in Bangkok, and we really great people, and they serve a lot of larger organizations. And so I know they're trying to work on some different contracts, and it's great that they're opening this up to mediators and arbitrators, specifically private practices. And so something to check out, and has some really snazzy features as well.
Okay, let's just back up for 1 second. How do you get to speak on a panel in Bangkok? Because I want to speak on a panel in Bangkok. Put aside awesome. All that ODR stuff. I want to go to Bangkok and speak.
It was incredible. They have such a robust and incredible community of ADR professionals, particularly from Singapore, Hong Kong, and talk about leading the way in ODR, much like you have done, Susan, for years. When you're in Singapore and you have clients in Hong Kong and Sydney and someone in Delhi, what else is there to do except go online, or you want to pay thousands and thousands of dollars to fly someplace? And oftentimes that's just not possible. And so the whole APAC region, really great work. There are some specific recommendations, and Susan, I can email some people who I have in mind, but next time there's an invitation, I'll be sure.
Yeah, if they're just they're looking for an extra person. That sounds like a pretty good gig. I think my last speaking engagement was in Santa Ana, California, but that's all right. That was pretty good. That was great as well.
California's not bad.
No, as you know, well, you don't know, but I will take any speaking gig in California anytime. So I love to go to California, my former home. Well, thank you. That I think is a great start. There are, we do want to point out, those are not the only alternatives out there. They are 4 of the possible resources for you to go look at. But that's, keep it an open mind. We tend to, as professionals, sort of jump on one thing, get comfortable, and think that's it. And right now, many of us have been pushed out of our comfort zone, but we want to get back into a comfort zone. So everyone's sort of jumping on one bandwagon again and thinking it's done. Okay, I've learned how to use WebEx, or I've learned how to use this, or I've learned how to use that. Keep an open mind. It's one of the best things that will help you in your practice as you go forward. Stay excited, stay interested. This is, Simon and I have both been doing ODR and getting excited about legal tech. We actually met, I do want to say, through our mutual friend, Erin Levine, one of the bright lights of legal tech, the founder of Hello Divorce. And we were just talking about how she's just been leading the way for family law professionals and e-lawyering. But there is so much that is going on in the world of legal tech that, this is just one tiny little corner. keep an open mind. Keep watching Simon's website. Simon, your website again is simonboehme.com. And you have all kinds of resources on there. You also have links to sign up for your trainings. You also do, I want everyone to know, Simon does one-on-one trainings. So you can get this level of experience and expertise in one-on-one hour-long or several hour session trainings. He's doing them all the time now. So what else would you like people to know about you, Simon?
Well, definitely check out Hello Divorce. Erin is incredible, and again, talking about people who really are passionate about access to justice and passionate about sharing what they know. Erin, Susan, Colin Rule, so many people like that have made our legal profession, have made the ADR community so much stronger. And so again, yeah, just check out my website, simonboehme.com. I'm also on Twitter, Simon Boehme, and just anything I can do to help keep your practice afloat. I know these are really difficult and trying times, and I hope everyone is taking care of themselves, but I'm doing anything that I can to help make sure people are moving this community forward, and that's what I'm so passionate about. And so I'm super grateful to you, Susan, for your advocacy, for your trainings, for pushing us forward. Without you, it's hard to imagine where we would be. And so just grateful for you and all of your work, and for having me on the show today.
No, well, I am so grateful that you came on the show and took the time, and you are doing so much to help, and always have, been advancing ODR, legal tech, and such a great open mind and, the voice of experience. So thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with all of my listeners. Thank you.
Thank you. This was great. Thank you.
This is fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do it again.
All right.
Simon will be a repeating visitor as I can come up with topics for us to talk about. This was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.